I think it's now time for You Called.
You Called. Presented by Playground.
Is brought to you by Playground, your premier gaming destination located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. And this is the time now where I'm going to get to your calls at 1-888-585-SICK, 1-888-585-7425. Your thoughts, your observations on the Montreal Canadiens losing by a score of 7-2 to the Buffalo Sabres. The Canadiens got it handed to them tonight. In my opinion, their worst performance of the season. They just didn't have it. And you saw it right from the start of the game to right to the end of the game. They started bad. They ended bad. It was bad. And they got dominated by Jeff Skinner and Tage Thompson, especially. Those two guys manhandled the Montreal Canadiens. They had absolutely no solution for them whatsoever. At one point, they tried to go offense versus offense. It didn't work out. And Caulfield gets a goal, but, Nick Suzuki was not Nick Suzuki tonight. And he's not the only one. I mean, at the end of the day, who played well for the Montreal Canadiens tonight? I don't think there's too many guys that did. 1-888-585-7425. Let's jump on the lines. And if we don't have any calls right now, we'll take some comments. Agnello and Sammy, you can bring them up and let me know when people are calling in. Gordon says, 17 goals against in 3 games. Your comment? My comment is that your players get better trying stuff, playing an offensive brand of hockey. I don't care how bad they are defensively. You remember when they put so much onus on wanting to be so good defensively that if the game was tied in the third period with 5 minutes left in the game or 5 minutes left in regulation, that the Montreal Canadiens would trap and trap and trap so they can bring the game to overtime and they could pick up a point. And then once they got to overtime, instead of putting their offensive players on 3-on-3 hockey, they would put their defensively responsible players, and you probably didn't see offensive players until the third or fourth shift. And by that time, the game was probably over because they probably ended up surrendering. And when they got to overtime, the Canadiens really wanted to take it to shootouts then because they thought that with Carey Price in goal, they could end up winning the game and picking up a couple of points. I am sick and tired of what we used to see, and I'm okay that they're not very good defensively right now. I'm okay that they're giving up a lot of goals. I want them to score a lot of goals. I want them to generate a lot of offense. I want them to have a lot of offensive confidence. I want some players' value to go up so like that they can trade them and end up getting some assets. And clearly, and you know what? Between you and I think I've made this clear already, I want them to lose more than they're going to win. This is a draft with some generational talents. And I, for one, would be very happy if the Montreal Canadiens would have the first or the second or the third pick in the draft. And I know that a lot of people don't agree with me because they're just tired of losing. But I say if you lose one more year, more often than not, you're going to end up winning a lot more for several years. That's the way I see it. How do you see it? Let's go to the phone calls, and we go to Larry in Ontario. Larry, good evening.
Yes.
How are you?
Not too bad. Is this Tony?
It is.
Oh, I have to tell you, as we go along here, I live about 10 doors away from Josh Anderson, where he grew up.
Oh, really? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he lived around the corner.
Wow. I live a couple of blocks away from Réjean Houle and Yvon Lambert. How about that?
But watching this kid grow up was something else,
Yeah.
But I agree with you. We all have to be patient with this team. I see this team, and I see the depth of this team, and I see what they have coming up. And this management team with Ken Hughes and Gorton, they're doing amazing things. You have a real good think tank there that are going to build a great team. And as you say, this draft coming up is awesome.
Awesome. I have a question for you. It might put you in a little bit of a bad spot, but I'll ask it anyway. You think Josh Anderson will be traded this year?
I have I'm stuck in between that one. They gave me.
Can I give you a scoop?
My gut tells me I think so, but you got to protect those young guys.
Can I give you a scoop?
Yep.
One team that wants him badly, because I mean, I'm sure there's a couple of teams that would take him. The New Jersey Devils want Josh Anderson badly. Believe me when I tell you that.
Have they got assets to come back?
Oh, they got a lot of assets to come back. They got great young players, and whether or not they want to give up it, listen, and I'm not talking about, the usual suspects. I mean, everyone knows. I mean, they're not trading, Jack Hughes, and they're not trading Nico Hischier, and but they got. I don't know how much they're willing to give up. I mean, but they got some players that they drafted that are not on this team right now, and I'm talking about defenseman Luke Hughes, Jack's younger brother. I'm talking about defenseman Simon Nemec. I'm talking about, winger Alexander Holtz. And I'm not saying that they would give one of those guys up for Josh Anderson. What I am telling you is that they want Josh Anderson badly. And, it doesn't mean you have to do a 1-versus-1 deal. You could end up spicing it up and throwing in other players or throwing in other picks. But I can tell you right now that based on what I'm hearing, the Devils want Anderson badly. Thanks for calling. Appreciate it.
Make the deal.
And of course, a lot of people are bringing up Simon Nemec's name because, of course, he's a Slovak, and so is Juraj Slafkovsky, and so is Philip Machar. And everyone remembers when they were, back in the hallway on the night of the NHL draft in Montreal, and they were hugging, and they took that picture, and it was pretty cool. We'll get to more calls at 1-888-585-7425. 1-888-585-SICK. We have Vito in Toronto. Vito, thanks for calling the Sick
Good
Podcast.
evening.
What's going on? How are you?
Tony, good. Tony, how are you?
Very good. Thank you for asking, Vito.
Good. I'm calling you from enemy territory here in Toronto.
Oh, that's okay. I like Toronto.
Well, love Toronto, hate the Leafs. So
I hear ya.
calling about by the way, longtime listener, first-time caller.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all your support over the years. I appreciate it.
Love your show. You're doing a great job.
Thank you very much. We're building something here slowly, but surely. We're building something, and we're pretty excited about it and pretty optimistic.
Awesome. I have to say that I did watch tonight's game. I hate rooting against the Habs, but I know this is sort of a necessary evil to lose these games. I'm on the same page as you. We need to rebuild. It's the only way that we're going to get elite talent. And I think it's something we should have done years ago.
You have been heard. And I think a lot of people share what you just had to say. Says Insta Customs, and thank you for your call. I appreciate it. There are at least 7 players who are on the trade market: Monahan, Dadonov, Hoffman, Armia, Drouin, Anderson, Edmondson, and Wideman. Who'll be the first domino? And he says Anderson. All right. Okay. Back to the phone calls we go at 1-888-585-7425. 1-888-585-SICK. Ben is in Newfoundland. How you doing, Ben?
Oh, how you doing, Tony? How you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. For
Good.
Well, short-time listener, first-time caller.
Welcome.
Thank you.
The line is yours, my
I'm
man. Tell me what's on your mind.
To see what's going on with Toronto, where they're out another defenseman. Do you think Montreal has any leverage there with some of their veterans, Wideman, Savard?
Well, I don't think Toronto needs Chris Wideman. I do think they could use a Joel Edmondson. I do think they could use a David Savard. Especially Edmondson. Look, both Edmondson and Savard won Stanley Cups in their career. Savard, of course, with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Joel Edmondson with the St. Louis Blues. Either of those can fit in Toronto, but do the Montreal Canadiens want to help out the Toronto Maple Leafs? Is that something they want to do? Some will probably say yes, and others will play, if they can get an asset in return, and others will probably say no, and it doesn't matter, because if there's a demand for those players, well, then the Canadiens will probably just end up trading those players or one of those players to another team instead of Toronto, right? Because Could you imagine you trade one of those players to the Toronto Maple Leafs? Toronto Maple Leafs go on and they do something special in the playoffs? A lot of people are not going to like that.
That's fair. That's fair. But it does open it up for Montreal to let some of the younger guys play, I think, and probably work their way down towards the bottom of the standings.
I think that's going to happen eventually. So, look, the Canadiens will pick up more points than they did in the standings a year ago. But the way 1 year ago they ended up being a seller and traded Toffoli and traded Kulak and traded Ben Sherratt and traded Arturi Lehkonen, I think the exact same thing is going to happen this time around as well. I think it's going to happen this time around as well. The Montreal Canadiens are going to end up being a seller. I am convinced. Thank you for your call, Ben. Much appreciated.
Thanks so much.
There you have it. That was Ben in Newfoundland. We continue to get to your calls. So 1-888-585-SICK. That's 1-888-585-7425. We have Jose in Montreal, or is it Jose? We'll find out. Hello.
It's Jose. I'm in Montreal.
It's Jose. Yes, Jose. How are you?
At the game. I'm doing good, Tony. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, I was listening to what you were saying earlier in the show, and they keep saying that they have to trade Anderson away. I have to say, I agree with that. But considering, yes, we trade Anderson away, what is the first need the team needs to assess? What do we hope that we get in return? What would be the priority?
Well, you want, a first-round pick and you want a prospect. I mean, that's what you want, right? Josh Anderson is on a pretty good contract at $5.5 million for the next several years. So a team that's going to be acquiring him knows that they can have Anderson locked in at 5.5. And I know that 5.5 sounds like a lot, but you also have to consider that the cap is going up. Now, I will say this. Josh Anderson's not one of the first guys you want to trade. I think we gave a couple of names before, some of the usual suspects. However, Anderson is the guy that's going to have the most value. So you have to determine whether or not he's worth trading this year, where you can get a real good asset or two in a real good draft year, or are you better off holding on to him for the next couple of years, because he is a guy who's tough to play against. He is a guy who does lead the team in hits. He is a guy who will defend his teammates if he's there. And so, he's not one of the first guys that you want to trade. I mean, he's not one of the first guys that you want to trade. And so they have to think about that. They got to think about that.
I hear you, Tony. Yeah. And I do believe, yes, we need a draft pick and a solid prospect. But my question, I'm referring more to what position, what position would we need to reinforce? Because we have plenty of young kids in the defensive end that are good. The first line, I
think the answer to that is easy. Take a look at a lot of players that are trade bait for the Canadiens, right? Whether it's Dadonov, whether it's Hoffman, whether it's Drouin, whether it's Armia, whether it's Anderson, right? What do these players have in common? That's my question to you. What do they have in common?
They're slumping.
They're wingers. So if they make a trade, they got to stock the cupboards again. So you have to go out, and if you can get a prospect that's a winger, you end up getting them, because if all these wingers are going to be gone in the next, year, or this year, or, max in the next year and a half, you're going to have to replace them with other wingers. How many other wingers are there not on this team, if you look at Laval right now, that can make the Canadiens next season? I'm not so sure that there are too many. Thanks so much for giving me a call. I really, really appreciate it. I'm Marinaro, and that clip you just watched is from our most recent episode of the Sick Podcast. Once again, follow us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free, and you'll be notified when we go live. I'm Marinaro. Tell your friends about it. This podcast, like me, is pretty sick.